But right now we're moving to the people, the power and the politics. And we've got in the blue seat, Dumisani Hlophe. He's the Chief Executive at Kunjalo Centre for Development. Now, Dumisani, lovely to have you back on the show.
Thank you.
I've got a gripe that's really, really upsetting me. So today I decided I'm going to Google what went down at the AU summit this week, because we know everybody's been down here. Sandton's been chock-a-block and other parts of the city. And I Google, and the first thing that comes up is Angelina Jolie comes to South Africa for the summit. Are these celebrities derailing some of the critical issues that we should be focusing on?
From a male's perspective, I would have appreciated that. but look, my issue though with the African Union is it doesn't have a teeth, and that's the problem with African organizations. They are not authoritative. It's like a bunch of voluntary people who just come together. So whether you are misbehaving or not, like the president in Burundi, there are no consequences. And unless Africa decides to take good governance seriously, and they begin to say that there's a law in this continent, and anyone who does not abide by the democratic principles and the good governance, the AU has, or the African Parliament has the authority to sanction those that misbehave. We will continue to have these fancy gatherings that have no meaning, and they use, you know, TV or film stars to make themselves relevant when in a real sense, they are not.
Yeah. Going back to the OAU, the predecessor to the...
From the 1960s?
Yeah, OAU, but there's a cultural inheritance, I think, here, which was the OAU was founded on the principle that we do not interfere with each other's countries. So we do not pass judgment on each other. The only way we can keep going is to leave each other to do what we want. And maybe that's still part of the culture, not condemning, not censoring.
Look, the horrible part is that in the African continent, I think Clive maybe can attest to this, we don't have a very strong private sector economies. And therefore, being within a state apparatus, being in government, it allows you the access to resources, distribution and control, and therefore you can live comfortably. Unless we can create a situation in Africa where the private sector is so developed such that to be in government, it's an option, not the alpha and omega of good living. We'll continue to have people who are going to keep fighting and the contest to be in that space, because outside of that space, they are not relevant. I mean, what's the point of this guy in Burundi wants to serve, you know, a third term? It's simply because outside of that space is not different from you and me, if not worse off. So unless we grow these economies, for me, that's a critical issue. Secondly, is the ability of the African politicians to say that, look, the fact that you are geographically in Africa will not automatically or naturally make you a member of the African Union. What will make you a member of the African Union is that these are the following requirements. You will abide by these issues, and if you don't abide by any of them, these are the sanctions and they'll be applied upon you. It shouldn't be just a geographic belonging.
But that is in fact what it is, isn't it?
That's the horrible part,
Clive was going to attest to something.
I
forgot what it was, but Clive attests to what Dumisani
Well, I think Dumi knows my thoughts on the continent, that we don't take ourselves seriously, and so that's why the world would never take us seriously. So we're lacking very much behind when it comes to implementation of policies that I mean, South Africa is one of the best countries in the world when it comes to policies that they put across. And now we've got all these kind of wonderful words that we use to describe our economy. Yet still, there is a huge difference between what's been applied and what's been said versus what's been applied at the bottom. And that's why we don't move. We're not seemingly moving. The transformation situation is not changing. The minings are doing what they would like, but nothing is actually being taken onto the platform. So that's why it becomes very difficult, therefore, for the world to look at us and say, you know what, we're going to take you seriously when you say these things are going to be put in place.
Yeah, but I mean, if we're looking at African economies, though, is this not also a matter of time as well? I mean, it's an infrastructure catch-up. I mean, if you look at a country like Ethiopia, for example, I mean, incredible growth rates.
Yeah.
I mean, going to be some of the cheapest electricity
Absolutely.
per kilowatt in the world. I mean, but it takes time to develop infrastructure.
Yeah.
I mean, are we not also being maybe a little bit overcritical that it's not happening now? But surely,
They're also very simple
let's look at maybe Rwanda. I mean, again, that's a country that's growing fantastically well. I mean, it's becoming a very business-friendly country as well. I mean, I don't know. Maybe we're being a little harsh, is what I'm saying.
No, I don't think we are. In our neighbors here in Swaziland, there's this whole question of an aeroplane, which was presented, like it's an aeroplane of the king. It was presented to the nation as a gift. A few years after, it turns out that the king is owing money on that aeroplane. How do you owe on a gift?
But you see, for me, this is the thing, and this is the only pushback that I'll give against Gary, is that if you look at the high growth rate, so just learned yesterday that, you know, although Liberia has had this big Ebola thing, but it's got, you know, really ambitious targets of getting back to 8%. You mentioned another figure for one of the other markets, but people can't eat 8% GDP growth. They can't eat 7%, they can't eat 11%. So until that growth translates into economic prosperity for the people on the ground.
Yeah.
For me, Africa Rising is a very, very big questionable narrative.
In Mozambique right now, the latest report showed that it's growing or likely to grow by 10%. If you read the latest of the Africa Insight, they'll tell you that only the millionaires will benefit from that growth.
Absolutely. As Botswana as well has gone backwards.
Yeah.
Botswana's gone backwards on the diamond beneficiation as well, which is very sad. And if you read about what actually happened there, it's because we kept having this rich also taking up a bigger portion of what the resources that are supposed to.
Okay, let's give
help
Gary
everyone.
right of reply, and then we move on to Paul Mashatile.
Exactly.
I agree, yes, but I think it's also like, I mean, Mozambique is maybe, I can't really fight against Mozambique because, I mean, if you look at that also in the latest World Bank reports, dropped down the standards massively.
Yeah.
But I'll go back to Rwanda. I mean, if you look at GDP per capita, I think over the last 5 years, it's tripled. And there you've seen a feed through to the people on the ground better off than they were before.
Right, we have to guillotine that discussion. Dumisani, we've had, I think, the first senior or first official ANC figure, Paul Mashatile, coming out and questioning the police minister's report on Nkandla. Now, up till now, whatever their privately held views, and we've heard some of them, the ANC has stood, as the Afrikaners say, bang vas achter die president, okay? And now we have a leading politician, ANC man, saying he's not
The
sure
chair of
about this.
Gauteng, not Mpumalanga.
No, it's not. It's not.
What do you call that? Do you call that a strategic move, or do you call that political suicide? What is it actually?
You know what? Throughout yesterday and today, I've been having people who are talking about that so-called suicide. I don't think for me that's what we should focus on. What we should focus on is this merging of the position of the state president and the president of the ruling party. What it has created the problem where the ruling party is unable to call into account its executive that it has deployed into the, into government. So you have Zuma, who's the state president, and ANC president. So when the deployees mess up in government, who then becomes who holds them accountable? So there's a serious void when it comes to ANC. If you check legislative political relations throughout the world, the strongest ones like China, they are able to hold those that they put in government. But in this country, the ANC can't because they've merged those positions. So when Paul Mashatile starts to say this publicly, it's partly, the inability of the ANC as an organization to call its president to account.
So Julius Malema has responded to this whole issue today, and he's released a statement that says, watch this space. Paul Mashatile is going to withdraw that statement, and he's going to say that he was quoted out of context. So I'm watching the space. Let's see if Julius has got his money on this one. A big thank you to Dumisani Hlophe. He's the CEO at Kunjalo Centre for Development, and of course giving us his political insights as we go through the people, the power, and the politics.